Good evening. My name's Arsh and I'm here today with a very good friend of mine, Neil Ward. And today we're going to be talking about quite a topic that's caused quite a stir this week on social media. Neil, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Ash. I'm here.
Okay, brilliant. Do you want to just say hello to everyone that's listening in?
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for logging in today. Hopefully, I can share some good tips with you over the last sort of 5, 6 months that I've been doing this.
Okay, fantastic. Right, okay. Just so that I know who we've got on board, and the one thing that me and Neil are very conscious of, that we want to try and give you guys the best possible value in tonight's webinar. So first of all, if you can, on the right hand side, there's a box where it allows you to type in questions. Can you just very quickly give us a yes or no, just to confirm that you can hear us clearly? And also, if you can very quickly confirm your level of experience. So, or more importantly, what you're looking to achieve out of tonight's webinar. Okay, so far everyone's saying yes. Okay, they can hear us. That's all good. Um, okay, a couple of people saying that they're beginners. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so everyone's saying yes, they can hear us, and then as we move along, we'll be able to tailor this according to where we need to be. I've had a couple of initial questions for you to take on board straight away, Neil. First one
Yeah.
is, I don't want you to answer them yet, but first question is, how much money do I need to initially invest to start this business? This is
Okay.
from a desperate nurse trying to leave the NHS.
Uh-huh.
And then, yeah, we'll talk about that, because when we're going to be talking about some of the examples that you've done in some of the properties, as the webinar was titled, how you've managed to create a property business that generates £5,500 cash flow in
Mm-hmm.
4 months.
Cool.
Uh,
Okay. Got
well,
that question down.
yeah, other people have asked, can Neil explain how he finds the rent-to-rent properties direct to landlord? And then other
Yeah, I knew this
people,
was going to be a big one
yeah.
actually. I've had a lot of emails about this.
Okay, and then another one, how do you find tenants through the council to fill every room with minimal voids? Okay, and so we're going through, I'm just having a quick look. Okay, so we've got a few beginners, a few people have got a few HMOs, students, got a few houses, rent to rents. Um, okay, so we've got quite a variety. Some people have got no experience in rent to rent but keen to learn about it. Looking to accelerate income generator. Right. Okay. I want to know the mechanics of how rent to rent works. Okay. Brilliant. So now we know where we are. So just so that you know, someone's put Justin or France, which is interesting. Okay. So yeah, Justin. Sorry, Justin. Neil, what we're going to do? We're going to kick off basically just telling everyone a little bit about who we are and what we do. And if you don't mind, I'll start first.
Okay.
So I run a group of 10 companies. My name's Arsh and I run a group of 10 companies with my brother Aki Elahi, and together we're landlords and letting agents. Been letting property since 1973, but I wasn't actually born until 1980. And my story is that my father had a small portfolio of properties. And when I left university, I decided to look at them, see where we were losing money, because my father, he treated his property portfolio as a part-time business because he was a full-time engineer. And when I left university, I looked at his portfolio and found out that we were losing money near enough month on month, because he wasn't concentrating on it full time. So I decided to take that role on. I've turned it from a portfolio that was only generating 50% of its income now to a portfolio that generates 100% of its income and a very high 98% occupancy rate. But we do that on 500 tenants. We're still continuously and very aggressively purchasing. Now, I purchase properties weekly. And those that know me through the social circuit would know that I write in magazines such as YPN, as well as other online social mediums. And one of the things that I do is that I do run workshops. Admittedly, it's a shameless plug. I completely agree, but I can teach. There aren't many strategies that I can't teach you about because I've been in properties. And I believe that to be in property and to be successful in property, you've got to kind of have three strategies. You've got to have your short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. Now, when I look at property, I don't want to go on too long about this. Short-term is your cash flow. Medium-term is going to be something that you can, and I consider short-term, something like the Rent2Rent strategy, which generated cash flow near enough instantly, which Neil's going to go on to discuss. Medium term is more so like the flipping strategy, where you're going to have to buy something, possibly acquire it with a view of flipping it on, and it could take anywhere between 6 and 12 months. And I've done quite a few of those recently. As the market's picking up, I'm flipping a lot more properties as to where I was prior to 2006. And then my long-term strategy is acquiring properties with buy-to-lets and just sitting there and letting them and forgetting about them. Almost like creating a HMO. So I can teach you about all three of those strategies. One of my best articles that I wrote for YPN, and one that got probably the most hits and the most feedback on, was one that I wrote last year, and it's called Increasing Your Revenue Without Making Physical Changes to Your Property, where I taught people how to maximize their rent from their single lets just by adapting their paperwork. So that's enough about me. The person in question tonight is a young gentleman whose name is Neil Ward. And instead of me explaining about what Neil does, I'm going to pass you over to Neil, who can tell you exactly who he is, what he's all about, where he's come from, what his history is, but more importantly, how he's managed to do what he's done. So over to you, Neil.
Okay, thanks, Arsh. Everyone hear me okay? Yeah. So first, I know there was a lot of questions coming through earlier. My Facebook inbox has been absolutely crazy this week. So if you have got any other questions, put them across to Arsh and we'll get to them as we go. So I think I've had a little bit of an advantage in this industry because my background, I've owned a lot of companies, but my background is marketing and sales. I was a consultant. I used to fly all over the world teaching marketing and mainly sales. I was a sales trainer throughout the UK. So I have got a bit of an advantage over the average person when it comes to doing this. Marketing rooms, marketing the business, how to get landlords on board, and how to actually close those deals with the landlord. And that's something I'm very good at, is actually building not necessarily a pitch, but building that relationship by showing all the benefits to the landlord so that I can actually get that deal done. And it really is, if I can give any advice, it's really just building a relationship with the landlord, finding exactly what they want, and then from there just delivering that if you can. Too many people that I've seen actually trying to do this, they've been taught do it like this, X, Y, Z, and if the landlord isn't interested, then that's that. But actually, none of my deals have gone like that. Some of the landlords have been difficult. Some of them have gone along with me quite easily. But it's really just about meeting them halfway, and it's just a relationship at the end of the day. So that's majority of my background. It is sales and training. I was in the army as well for quite a long time, but that's given me the discipline, I think, to do this properly. Right, I don't want to talk too much about myself, but let's go straight into it. Arsh, if we go to the next slide.
Okay, so between me and Neil, we're going to be talking to you about the very basics, because I appreciate that we've got quite a few beginners on tonight's webinar. So Neil, I'm going to very briefly say it's very much that there's three people in the equation. Wouldn't you agree? There's a landlord, there's you, and then there's a tenant.
Definitely.
And the landlord who owns a property, you're the person who wants to rent the property off the landlord, and then in turn you want to be able to rent the property out to tenants. In simple terms, you approach the landlord with your proposition. You do some work to the property to multi-let the property, and then you let the property out, hopefully for a lot more than you're paying the landlord, which should, in theory, be your profit. But this is all very basic stuff, and I'm just going to give you the very basics so that everyone knows how it works. Now, I'm very risk averse as an investor. I like to know when I sleep at night that regardless what's happening in my portfolio of properties, I'm still making some form of income. Now, if you're a buy-to-let investor and you've predominantly kept it as standard single lets, which is nothing wrong with that, I found that your risk to that tenant is 100% every point of the time. Now, let's just use a standard single let, and for this example, let's just say £700 per calendar month. Whilst the tenant is living in that property, yes, you're going to be getting your rent, but when the tenant vacates, you're not actually going to be generating any income from that property until you find a new tenant, which means that you're going to have a void period. Now, some will be happy with that, but the longer the void period, the less your property is actually making money. So I apologise for quite a bad diagram of a house, but here's how it works with a rent-to-rent. Now let's just imagine for this example, we've got a 4-bedroom, 2 reception room property. With a rent-to-rent strategy, providing that you did a little bit of work to the property, rooms number 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 could be let out. Then you've got the living room, which is LR, K for kitchen and B for bathroom. All the tenants can share the living room, the kitchen and the bathroom. And here's how it works from a mathematical point of view. So now, in where Neil is located in Coventry, a room goes on average for around £400 per month. Is that right, Neil?
No, it's about, the average room is between 300 and 350.
Okay.
I've just used some examples, sort of what we're talking here, because obviously my rooms go for a lot more. So, but average 300, 350.
Okay, so let's just say, and for ease and numbers' sake, let's say that each room here is going to be generating £400 per calendar month. Now we've got 5 tenants in there. 5 times 400 gives you £2,000 per calendar month. But then let's just say, for argument's sake, in this scenario, actually, before I go any further, has anyone else lost sound? Because I've had 2 people now contact me and said that they've lost the sound. Can everyone else still hear us? Okay, everyone's still saying sounds okay. Brilliant. I just wanted to make sure that we've still got everyone. Okay, so we've got 5 rooms now at £400 per calendar month, which gives us a gross total of £2,000 per calendar month. Now we've got to minus some costs. The rent that we've agreed with the landlord, and for this example, let's say £700 a month. Also the utility costs. Traditionally, you as the landlord or the subletter will be paying the bills on the property. So the rent at £400 per room that you're charging will be all inclusive, normally of council tax, water rates, electricity and gas, plus some of the additional bonuses. Some may add Sky, some may add broadband, some may add a cleaner, etc., depending on the clientele that you're looking to attract. So after your utility costs, which is at a moderate £350 per month, you're left with a profit of £950, which is actually quite, with very little work, generating just short of £1,000 per calendar month. Over a year, for a property that's actually cost you nothing to acquire, you're generating an income £12,000. Now, providing that you can do this on a scale, all you need in theory is 5 of these properties to generate that £50,000 magical income that everyone goes on about. Everyone says that financial freedom is when you hit to £50,000 income. Well, you only need 5 properties to do it. And Neil is we're going to be talking about what's required. So Neil, I'm going to let you go through this side.
Okay.
Tell us why rent-to-rent works.
Right, let me see what you've got on here. Okay, so no mortgages. I think that's the key for a lot of people, actually, because some of the people that spoke to me initially, they had bad credit or couldn't get a mortgage for whatever reason. Some people were self-employed as well. I remember when I was self-employed, I had 2 years accounts, but I still couldn't get a mortgage. So not only that, I think it's good because if you want to start out, you want to build up a pot of money, which is something I've been wanting to do as well, build up another pot of money. you can actually do that, and you can use that pot of money then to put down deposits. So another reason it's a good strategy is that if you haven't got a lot of cash lying around, and a lot of people don't these days, you can build up a pot very fast, and then you can use that to put it down for deposits. So just looking at your slide here, yeah, it is easy to generate cash flow. Is from this. The initial workload of it is difficult. It's really difficult actually. But once you've done that, it's plain sailing. Some of the stuff that I've set up recently, I'd say it's 2 or 3 weeks of really hard work, and then after that, it's just management. It's an hour or two a week, and that's it really.
Okay, and just to elaborate on that, the reason why Rent2Rent really works for me is that I already own a lot of property. And I thought, well, I still want to continue to grow, but no one's got a bottomless pit of cash. So in order for me to buy a property where I am, average house price for the kind of stock that I like to buy is approximately £100,000. Now, if I wanted to buy that property, it would naturally mean that I'd need a deposit of 25%, which would automatically mean I'd have to tie up £25,000 as a deposit straight away, which, as most will know, I won't be able to pull back out for a minimum of 6 months. So that's £25,000, plus I've got to pay a solicitor to deal with the acquisition, plus I've got to pay for a mortgage application, plus I've got to pay for a surveyor, plus I've got all the added hassle of having to go through the whole acquisition process. With a rent-to-rent strategy, very straightforward. All you do, you go meet your landlord or your agent, but today we're talking about landlords. You agree the deal and you walk away with the keys. And it really is as simple as that. And it's fair to say it is a numbers game, because not every landlord you're going to approach is going to want to give you their property. But then it's the same like the BMV or the below market value market. When you went to try and buy their property, if it's worth 100 and you got your cheeky offer of 70, not all of them are going to say yes to it straight away. So some of them will say, well, no, unfortunately, it's a bit low for us, but others will try and snap your hand off for it. But more importantly, you've got to create something which is called a win-win scenario. You've got to go to them and say, okay, I'm looking to take your property on. I normally do it for a term of 7 years. I know Neil does it anything from 3 years upwards.
Yeah.
But you've got to say to them, okay, well, here's the deal. I'm looking to take it off you for 7 years, where I look after all the maintenance and I'll do all the bits and bobs. Yes, I'm going to multi-let the property. But on that basis, every landlord or every investor wants to be very much a hands-off investor, and you're offering them that freedom. They're no longer having to deal with the calls, the hassles of, oh, I've got a leaky tap, oh, the toilet's broken, oh, the boiler's broken down. And that's the biggest thing when you're approaching a landlord, that you've got to be able to offer them an incentive for them to offer you the property. More importantly, no one wants to deal with someone that isn't confident in what their ability is. You've got to go to them and say, well, actually, yes, and use myself as an example. Yes, my name's Arsh. Yes, I've already got a portfolio of properties, and the reason why I'm approaching you with this proposition is because I want to excel my business, and I can do this by using your property. This is proposition. Yes, I'm going to offer you X amount of pounds for your property every month, and it's going to be guaranteed for the next 7 years. I'm going to take on the maintenance. I'm going to take on all the hassle. All you'll do is on the 1st of every month, click into your bank, check that I've paid you your rent, and you're going to be a happy landlord. In a nutshell, Neil.
Yep. I was going to add one thing to that actually. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I thought
Yeah.
I lost you for a second, but yeah.
No, that's cool. One of the biggest incentives that I found with landlords is that a lot of them are just fed up of having, over the years, having people skip out on rent, late on the rent, things like that. So a lot of the time I have put low balls in, and they've just gone, yeah, straight away, because I said to them, you know, it's guaranteed rent. What date do you want it paid? Just name the date. It'll be paid every month. set up a standing order right now, we'll get it all done. And sometimes that is enough for a lot of landlords, especially I had one recently, and he basically said, look, honestly, you don't need to tell me anymore. I'm already on board. How much are you going to pay? I told him it was low, and he said, you know what, it's a lot lower than I thought, but my mortgage payment is only this. So I'm still going to have £100 more, and I'm not in it for a profit each month. I want the capital growth to pass this on to my son. So it can be something as simple as that, really.
Okay, that's good. And I'm just checking in again. Can everyone hear us okay? Because a couple of people said that we had a slight blip where all the sound had gone. Can everyone hear us? If you can just put a yes or no, that'd be fantastic. Whilst we do that, I'm just going to, yeah, everyone's still on board. Fantastic. Do you mind if we just take a couple of questions here, Neil?
Yeah, go for it.
A lot of the questions are all to do with mortgage lenders. Are the mortgage lenders happy with what you're doing? How about the legal side of it?
Yeah, okay. So that is a little bit more complex. So it's not right. I won't get into it too deep because this is a legal area, and I use a solicitor. I'm not a solicitor myself, so I use a solicitor. I speak to him twice a week, actually. At the beginning, I was speaking to him twice a day, especially some of the contracts that were knocking around, rent-to-rent contracts. I saw there were so many loopholes in them, you just wouldn't believe. I mean, I found about 10 in one day. So I was quite lucky in that one of my second landlord, actually. He was a property solicitor, and I showed him the contract, and he absolutely destroyed it. He red penned it all over the place. So I took that back to my solicitor, and he said, yeah, this guy's done you a favour. Loophole, loophole, loophole. If you'd have done this agreement and spent money on this house, you could have just walked away. You've not been able to do anything about it. So, and I've looked at a few other people that have shown me contracts, and they said, look, I've got this contract. What do you think? And I've done the same. I've just destroyed these contracts. So when it comes to the mortgage lender itself, there's a few main things to look out for. A lot of the traditional buy-to-let products don't allow more than one AST, so that's one thing to look out for. Make sure your landlord's on the right one, and don't do what I've heard some people saying, that just get it signed up, it's their problem. It's not their problem, because at the end of the day, if the mortgage lender comes back and says something to the landlord, it then becomes your problem. So you want to stop all this stuff right at the beginning, check everything. The majority of the deals I've got, there's no mortgage on them, so that's what I've really gone for. I've targeted the ones that haven't got a mortgage, or if they've got a mortgage, I've made sure that the landlord has actually called them, and I've got a letter back saying that X is allowed, Y is allowed, you know. But the other one is the locks in the doors. That's a tricky one with some lenders, so we've actually had to switch a product over. It's going through. This is one that's going through in a couple of weeks. He's doing a product switch. Because his mortgage wouldn't allow locks in doors. So there, like I said, I'm touching on it here, but there's a lot more involved in it. In the legal side.
Okay, brilliant. Talking about the landlords, but where's Neil finding these landlords? Okay, brilliant. Neil, I think the main point that everyone's asking is, where are we finding these blasted landlords?
Yeah, so
before we go onto this, I'm just going to give you a couple of words of advice, and I've completely forgotten what I've put in these slides. Now, word of advice that I always give to everyone, and I see so many people saying, yeah, okay, we're going to do this strategy. The landlord's previously renting it out for, let's just say, £500 a month, and then the person goes in and says, yeah, okay, don't worry, I'm going to give you £500 a month. And they haven't actually done their due diligence on the property. You've got to make sure that the property is able to work for you. I took on a property recently where a well-known HMO landlord around my neck of the woods took on a property by giving the landlord too much money, and he ended up having to give the property back to the landlord. Landlord naturally wasn't very impressed because he thought he had a 7-year contract. But the HMO investor had a clause in there that he could walk away any point by giving 1 month's notice. And if the deal didn't work for them, he walked away. And that's exactly what he did. You've got to make sure in that all your contracts, and this is just one of the main points, that if it's not working for you, you need to be able to get out of the contracts, because the last thing you want is a rent-to-rent property that's going to be a ball and chain around your neck. In all my properties, and I've only been, admittedly, I've only concentrated on this strategy only recently, over the last 12 months. But my rent-to-rent business is generating just short of 10 grand a month in cash flow. And I've put a break clause for 1 month's get out at any point in the 7 years. So that's something really for you to consider about, because you need to make sure that if it's not working for you, you need to get out of it as quickly as possible. Good advice, Neil?
Definitely, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, someone said, can you recommend a good list of contracts? We're going to be talking about contracts in a short while, because one of the offers that we're going to make you tonight includes you allowing you to get a copy of Neil's contract. So let's move on. Neil, talk to us about one of your properties that you've taken on. We're going to be looking at 4 examples tonight of Neil's properties, of which he sourced directly with the owner. And what we're going to be talking about is how he's found the owner, how he contacted the owner, what he said to the owner, how he bought it in, how the figures look, but more importantly, what it's producing.
Okay. Right. What I'll say, these 4 examples I'm going to show you now, these are some of my most recent ones. They generate less cash flow than my original ones, but there's a good reason for that. I've adapted my strategy over the last 3 months. Again, I've changed it, streamlined it more towards what I'm after. So these 4 that I'm going to show you are all unlicensed. They're all unlicensed properties, no HMO license on them. They're 3-bed, 2 receptions. Right. So this one was a doctor. Yeah. This one was from a builder. His name's Rich, a friend of mine. I told him about what I was doing, and I said, if you find any properties for me, I'll give you a couple £100 cash. And he said, oh, right. 10 minutes later, he said, do you know what? I just fitted some smoke alarms for a doctor. He's got this house, and it's been empty for 2 years now because it was absolutely trashed, and the meters have been removed by bailiffs and all this. And I thought, oh, right, okay. So I said, have you got his number? He said, yeah. He gave me the guy's phone number. I phoned this chap, and really nice elderly gentleman. Asked him about his property, see if he wanted to do anything with it. And he didn't, it was a new concept to him, rent-to-rent. So he just asked me, do I want to buy it? And I said, well, potentially, can we meet up? And he said, yeah, let's meet at the property. So we met at this property, and it was not in a good condition at all. I've got a couple of photos to show you after I've gone through the examples, actually. It was not in a good condition at all. It had been really trashed, and massive bills left, and all sorts of things. So with this one, I basically made him an offer, which I didn't know at the time was quite low on this one, actually. But I offered him, that was £700. Yeah, £700 on this one. And he took it straight away. He nearly bit my hand off, actually. So the other thing I want to talk about is why I do 3-year leases. I know people talk about 5 to 7 year leases all the time. Don't touch it unless it's 5 to 7 years. I've got a completely different outlook on that. And again, it comes from my background in sales. And that is really, you want to make it as easy as possible for someone to say yes. So if you put yourself in the landlord's shoes now, you've got a property, and I come to you and ask for a 7-year agreement. Most people don't know what they're doing in 7 days, let alone 7 years' time. So what I do is I look at what is the minimum I can sort of do it for, and for me it's 3 years. So I approach them with a 3-year agreement because I know that's got the best chance of them saying yes. And I've never had anyone turn down a 3-year agreement yet. But I've been quite clever with it in that at the 4-year point, I say to them, if you do 3 years with me, At the 4th year, I'll do a 10% rate rise on the rent. So 700 will become 770. So that's the way I've done it. Because I know it's like a ladder. We talk about it in sales. It's like a yes ladder. When it comes to the 3 years, they'll have had such a good service with the property and with me, and I've added value to their property. I've really taken good care of it. They're not paying fees like they would with a letting agent and everything else. And then he's thinking, right, should I take this and rent it out myself or rent it through an agent? Oh, he's just put the rent up to £770. Yeah, you know what? I think I'll stick with Neil. It's really that easy. I also put in another clause that at the 5-year point, I let the landlords keep any furniture that's in the house. And that might sound a little bit crazy, or you might think, why would you do that after you spent money on the furniture? After 5 years, that furniture is not going to be in good condition anyway, but that's really why I do it. And I'll just buy new. I don't think I'd be moving 5-year-old furniture to another house because all mine are very high spec. And I'll talk about the fact that some of you know that I charge a lot more than the average room in Coventry. Most rooms in Coventry, 300, 350. You can get a room for that. My rooms start at 375 for a small single, and they go up to £500 basically. And even today, just not even finished a house actually today, and had so many messages coming through. I just said to Rafia, who works for me, does my marketing, just send some people over. We'll just do a block booking. People came right over. They looked at was basically bare floorboards, painted walls, and my iPad showing them photos of what this is going to look like afterwards. And there and then, I've got 4 people straight away putting deposits down, £150 fees down straight away, all taking rooms, and those rooms are about £475 a piece. So it really is that quick and easy once you get good at it. So rent to landlord on this property then £700. Master bedroom 440. The downstairs is basically the same size as the master upstairs. Downstairs one 420. Reason I charge £20 less is because a lot of people don't like being on the ground floor. They prefer to be upstairs. And then we've got the back room at 400 and then the side room at 400 on this property. So that generates £1,660 per calendar month, just shy of 20 grand per year. Next slide, please. So going to the figures and getting to net then, that's a 680. I think this one is 680 actually. I might have put 700 on the first slide, but it's 680. Utilities come in at about £330. So all the utilities are the same on all the properties, give or take £20, £30. I'm just going to use 330 as an example because it's not far out. The refurb cost on this one was actually quite high because, like I said, the tenants did trash the place. So that was quite a high one. So refurb £3,000, rental income £1,660. So the profit on that one is £650. So break even on that is 4.5 months. I don't really tend to go over that now. 4.5 months, 5 months is the absolute limit because I want to be getting my money back quite quickly. Which is recently I've been targeting the student landlords, because they've already converted them to 4 bedrooms. All the furniture's there. You basically just need to throw out the old stinking mattresses, put some new ones in, nice mattresses, nice, clean up the furniture, maybe put some varnish on, and you're all sorted really. That was nothing to acquire this. It was a direct one. So next slide. Yeah. So this was Craven Street. This is another recent one. He's a solicitor. In fact, that's the guy I was talking about, the property solicitor, Adam. So he's had that property for 5 years. He had nothing but hassle, and he couldn't rent it out because it's next to a pub. So straight away, I knew what I would do with this one. So I'd market it to pub workers, nightclub workers, people like that. So really, again, it's just thinking outside the box. Using a bit of good marketing and getting the right sort of people in. It's just thinking outside the box, really. So that one's another 4-bed. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
So again, 3-year lease. Approached him with that. He drove a hard bargain. I wanted to pay $650 for this one, but he was not having any of it. He wanted £1,000. And I said to him, you know, £1,000 is ridiculous. And he said, well, that I'd get 1,100 with students. And I said, you would, but it's been empty for 2 years, so you've made nothing. Because, you know, he thought, oh, he was thinking 12,000 a year in his head, or 24, you know. So I said, well, you've not made 24,000 over 2 years, you've made zero. So, you know, just take the offer basically. So we negotiated, and eventually we got to 700, where I was happy with. Generating enough money. So all the rooms in there, 400 a piece, 1,600. So again, just shy of 20k a year. Next slide. Yeah, so rent to landlord, £700. Utilities again, about 330. So that's your gas, electric, water, council tax. Now you can actually make more profit if you do students or international students, because you can shave over £100 off that from the council tax. But I do professional, so refurb on that was a low one. It was only £1,600. There wasn't a great deal to do in there. I just cleaned up a lot of the stuff that he had previously. So again, it's not a huge profit. It's only $570 per month, but it's what I'm doing now. I prefer this strategy because it's a lot less hassle. And that was £200. Actually, I've just realised the one I talked about before, that wasn't the builder. This was the builder who I paid the £200 fee on. That one was free. I actually acquired that direct. But if we go to the next slide. So number 3, Coniston Road. This house is absolutely stunning. When I approached this landlord, he was the most skeptical guy I've ever met. Director of a huge company, supplies pies, 200 tons a week to all, you know, Weatherspoons and all this other stuff. He was, you know, he's a bit of he's a nice guy, but he was very stern, shall we say. He was not having any of it, wasn't interested, didn't want to know. He's got so many houses, it's just unbelievable. But he's had this property 7 years, and eventually we turned it around because the people that were in there were international students. And when I walked in, this property absolutely stunk. It was horrible, it was dirty, it was filthy. So we had a good chat, and I just said to him, you know, do you really want your houses to be like this? They're just going to keep going downhill, they're going to lose value every year and all the rest of it. So he eventually gave in. It took quite a long time, probably about 40 emails back and forth, dozens of phone calls, but eventually he caved, and we arranged a deal. And that was a very low price as well, $700 per month, because that house is worth a lot more. It rents about $1,400. Just take a drink while you go to the next slide. Right. So again, 3-year lease, 10% rate rise for year 4 with the furniture clause at year 5. $440 for the master, $400 for the side room, $400 for the downstairs bedroom, $375 for the back room, which is a pretty big single. So again, it's just shy of 20 grand per year on that one. Next slide. So let's look at the figures on this. £700 rent to landlord, utilities $330. Refurb wasn't too bad on this one. It was £2,600. So 1,600. So the profit on that again is $585 per month, and that's net profit. There's just the same as all the others. They're all the same, sort of £575, £600 net, and that's what I'm going for now. Because what I found was, I don't know if you've experienced this, Arsh, because you've got bigger HMOs. When I started with the bigger HMOs, as soon as I went over 4 bedrooms, I don't know why, but the maintenance just doubled. There was hassles and arguments and all sorts of other things, and it's not something you often get with professionals, but that's what I had. As soon as I've gone to 4 bedrooms, I've not had any issues. Everyone gets on really well together. 2 of the houses have their movie nights and every Friday, and they cook together, and this is just the strategy I'm going to use going forward because it works perfectly for me. Break-even point on that, 4.5 months again. Now, this is interesting. It only cost. Did you want to jump in there, Ash?
Yeah, no, so one person just put us what is BEP, but BEP stands for break even point.
Yeah, it's actually in brackets just after it there.
Yeah.
So let me talk about one sourcing strategy that I do. And it's actually pretty common sense, common knowledge, but people just don't really do it because it does involve a little bit of effort. But this cost me £5 to acquire this deal. That's it, all in £5. I walked up the road, I saw a board outside a house, and it was for let. I literally just wrote the address down, went home, title search, got the title, got the address, wrote the landlord a letter, and this is a letter that I've really tweaked now over the last few months. I've changed it, I've edited it, I've tested new letters, and I've got one now that works really well. It's got a very, very high response rate. Nearly every single person that gets that letter at least calls me for a conversation. But it was only £3 to download the title for that house, 50p for a stamp, 20p for an envelope. So that's really what it cost. It's actually less than £5, but that's all it cost to acquire that deal. And it really is as simple as that on that property to get in contact with the landlord. Let's go to the next slide, see what we've got next. Okay, so we've come back full circle now. Remember I talked about the doctor at first. This was the doctor's son, who's an accountant. So the doctor was so impressed with what I'd done with his property and renovated it and all this. He actually thought it was too good to be true. He didn't believe originally what I was saying. He was very skeptical again. But he couldn't believe it. He told his sons and he told everybody else, and word spread quite quickly. Everyone wanted to come and take a look at what I'd done. And his son came to me and he said to me, I'd love to do what, give my property to you so you could renovate it, but I'm getting £1,200 a year from students. And I said, all right, okay. And I looked inside and it was not a good standard at all. And I said, have you actually got students this year? And he said, well, not yet, but I will have. I rent it every year. And I said, well, we're in June now. You're cutting it quite fine. And he said, no, every year without fail, I get students. And I said, okay, well, if you do decide, I'll pay you, I think it's about £600 or something, which he laughed at and said, no, I wouldn't do that. 1st of July came, like a lot of student landlords, he panicked, called me, can you come for a meeting, come to their house? So if we go to the next slide. We negotiated, he negotiated really hard. And not too hard, but we got to £680 per calendar month for that property. And the other thing I use is a calculator. It's a rental calculator. I didn't invent it. I got it from my friend Justin. Justin actually gave this to me, so I can't take credit for it. I've adapted it now, and I've really made this calculator. I've added another sort of 30-40% to it, and it really now is dynamite. When I sit with a landlord like him who's an accountant, so he's very numbers orientated. He's not a touchy-feely kind of guy. He wants to see numbers. He wants to see facts and figures. So I used a spreadsheet. It's all calculated out for me already. I put in the figure on top of my column, put in the figure that he was getting from his letting agent. And then once you add in all the fees and the maintenance and everything else, you'll be amazed how quickly that 1,200 drops to 550, which is exactly what happened with his column. Because as soon as he added in the fact that he'd been paying £1,200 a year in maintenance and repairs and things like that, he realised he wasn't getting what he thought he was. And his 8 weeks void, because he was having UK students, it just absolutely nosedived. And as soon as I, offered him that, he again bit my hand off once he saw it, in fact, black and white. So again, you've just got to find out about the person you're sat down with. Are they more sort of emotional kind of people? Do they connect by relationships, by talking, by building a friendship? Are they someone that are really just interested in the facts and figures? They don't want to chat. They don't want to be your friend. They just want to see the numbers. You've really got to cater to each landlord like that. But I was going off on the sidetrack there, but let's finish this. So 680. Right, loft room on this one. Now Coventry's a little bit different. You can have 3 floors, but you don't need a license if it's 4 rooms. So this has got 4 rooms in it, over 3 floors. The loft room is absolutely huge. So that goes for 475, and it goes every day of the week. I had about 10 people that all wanted that room. I was going to put the price up, but then I thought, no, the woman that wanted it, teacher, lovely, lovely girl, so I gave her the room at 475. Next room on that one, 440, that came through a referral from another tenant, and her budget was actually £300. She saw this room, because it was the last one left, at 440, and she just jumped all over it. She said, I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but I'll figure it out. And her mum agreed to pay, I don't know, £80 or something towards it a month as well. So she's in that room. The £400 room is another chap. He's an engineer, really nice guy. And the room downstairs, the single, is a nurse, works at a local hospital. So there's the sort of people you got in there, and that generates over 20k. So that's one of the lowest properties and the smallest, but yet it generates the most money. So it's quite interesting. Refurb was very cheap on that, £1,300. So it broke even 2 months basically. So 2 months break even, and now I'm making £680 profit every single month on that one. You can't really get better than this deal. It's brilliant. And that was zero because it was through a referral through his father. So that was that deal. And I think if you go to the next slide, it might be just about it on that.
Okay, so here we are.
Right. So I know a lot. You go on.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say the next slide. We've got a few of the before and after pictures.
Right. So I know this is a big one. I used to get questions like this all the time, asking me about my refurbs and how do I do them so cheap, and have I used a designer and all this sort of stuff. I actually did all this myself. So if you look at the left room here, top left, that was actually on spareroom.co.uk. Someone was advertising that room at £220. I just couldn't believe it. So I got in contact with the landlord through a sub account on Spare Room, and I just said, you know, can we have a chat about these properties you've got? And what I did a Rent2Rent with him and turned that room into that which is underneath it, and that room went for 375. So 220 to 375 just by tidying it up. Middle room was originally a lounge, and if you look at the bottom picture, I just tidied that up. So a new carpet in there. The whole place, the carpeting was about £400. I kept the lighting and the curtains and everything else. Just painted the walls, painted right over. Chest of drawers, IKEA. What else we got? Bedding. That bedding is the same. I use it for every single bed. You'll see all my beds are the same. Use the same bedding, just move it from house to house. And then to the right, again, that was, just trying to think which house that was now. I think it was a student house that I spoke to the landlord. Again, another direct to landlord contact. And it was really not in a good state at all, and it was sat empty in July. So this was late July. It was empty. I knew he wasn't going to get students in there. There was just, unless he did it by the room, all the groups had finished. Actually, they'd all found their houses. Approached him, put a low ball offer in. He took it straight away. He didn't even blink. Got the keys within 3 days after the contract was signed. That's one of the biggest bits of advice I'll give you on this. Always get the contract signed before you start doing any work, because the first one, the second one I did, he was really dragging his heels on the contract, and I thought, well, I want to get started. I've started marketing. I want to get started. I went in and started painting and things like that. Well, not me personally. I got someone in, started painting it all, and then the guy said he changed his mind. So that was that. So It cost me the best part of £70, which is not a lot of money, but it was a lesson learned. Don't even go in, no matter if the guy's saying, oh yeah, I've got the contract, I've just signed it, it's coming across to you. It doesn't make any difference until you've got it in your hand. It's not a deal. And that goes for everything in life, really. I actually don't do contracts in paper now. I use Adobe EchoSign for all my contracts and all my paperwork, tenancy agreements. It's all legally binding, and I'll talk about this in the systemization part, actually. But you can see the bottom right picture there. That's what I turned that room into. So that's the before, that was the after, and it didn't cost much at all.
Okay. We've got a few more before and after shots on some of the kitchens and some of the lounges that you've created.
Yeah. I won't go into it too much. I'll talk about the first and the last picture, and then we'll move on because of time-wise. But the kitchen was really dirty. It was just filthy, this kitchen. And all I did, I got it deep cleaned. Even you can see the floor, that was grease, where it's all the lines are dark. That was grease. I got it all cleaned up, added a little bit of colour, changed the appliances, and the kitchen was stunning afterwards. Everyone says this brand new kitchen, but it was years old. Last picture is key because when it comes to single rooms, these are often the hardest to rent to professionals. But just by adding a little bit of colour and a nice lamp and nice bedding, some pictures, that room went straight away. There was no messing around with that. Okay. So, systemizing everything. This is absolutely crucial. If you're going to turn this into a full-time business, you need to systemize the business. I'm a little bit OCD when it comes to systemization, but I don't think I'd be able to run my business the way I do and have grown as fast as I have without this. So I've got about 20 of these mind maps, all for different things, but people keep asking me about the marketing. Oh, what are you doing to market? Well, how long have we got? We got 10 hours because that's how long it takes to go through all the different threads I've got there. Furnishings, that is a template. Every house is identical. I don't go around IKEA and go, right, what do I need in this house? Joe just takes the template, walks around IKEA, throws it all in the trolley, and he's done. It's as simple as that. It's all systemized. I've started, you can see there's 3 photos on that. I've just started to add the photos in this week. And then deal sourcing aspect, again, it would take all day long, but that's my mind map there for sourcing deals. There's a lot on there. But I think, what was the question about sourcing deals? Yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky question to answer. How do I source the deals? Because I've had a lot of guys ask me, and I've told them exactly how I do it, and they've gone off and they've not been able to do it themselves. But then when I've sat down with 4 guys, and I've sat down, I've gone through it all in detail with them, spent a couple of hours with them, they've all gone off and got a deal in literally a week or 2. Every single one of them. In fact, one guy got 3 deals within 2 weeks after I sat down, because it's not something that, I mean, even just talking about now the webinar, I can explain how I do it all, but until we sit down and go through examples and stuff, it won't really make sense. But one of the biggest ways that I source a lot of the deals is word of mouth. It's walking the street, looking for boards and writing letters, and then having a phone call. So I've got, it's not necessarily a script, but there's a lot of points on there that I'll make sure I cover with the landlord to make sure he's got all the benefits. And then I want to push it forward to a meeting where I'm building the rapport. Ash, did you have anything specific? My throat's getting really dry now from talking so fast.
Well, that covers a lot of the content. I appreciate that you've put a lot into that. There's quite a few questions that I'll try and help out with here. I purposely haven't asked them whilst we're going through because I appreciate that we've had to put a lot into tonight. A lot of the questions come down to who pays the refurb cost, and I can almost answer that for you because I'm assuming when you've done your due diligence on it, you're always looking at what your break-even point is. So you need
Yeah.
to be able to calculate after you paid your rent and after you put your break even point is, the longer it takes to break even, the less likely you are to make money.
hmm
So a lot of people are asking about refurbs. One person asked where you got your bedding from, which I thought was quite funny.
Yeah. So the bedding, a lot of the stuff is quite cheap that I use. It's good quality, but it's cheap. Now the bedding is the opposite to that. If you're gonna go go big, then do it properly. That bedding cost me about £200 for all of that. It was not cheap stuff. The pillows are where are they from? I think they're something like House of Fraser or something like that. They're about £30 each for those small pillows. It's not cheap bedding at all. It's very expensive.
Okay, right. A lot of people have asked questions about HMO licenses. Does every property need a HMO license? Now that will vary from council to council. You may be in areas, and this is one thing that you do need to take into consideration, is whether you're in an area of Article 4. If you're in an area of Article 4, and for those that don't know, you won't be able to set up a HMO without planning permission. So that will be, if you are completely new to strategy and you're thinking that this is great, the first bit of research that you will need to do directly after this webinar is just type in Google Article 4 areas, and it'll give you a list of all the areas which are currently operating Article 4. And then it may make it slightly tougher for you. It's not impossible, but just bear in mind that when you're dealing with planning permission, potentially you may have 3 or 4 months whilst you're going through the planning process where you may not be generating an income. And these are the things that you may need to start discussing with your landlord. Whilst you're going through this process, who pays the rent? Are you paying rent for that period? Are you not? Are you negotiating a rent-free period? When I'm doing refurbs, a lot of the questions that we've had today, Neil, is do you negotiate a rent-free period whilst you're doing the refurb? Who picks up the cost for the refurbs? Who pays the maintenance?
Yeah. Yeah, I always ask for a rent-free period. I've never had anyone say no. The landlord, who I said was quite stern guy, he only agreed to 7 days, which for me was fine. I wanted 2.5 weeks, but he said 7 days. So it's fine because I can turn the house around, strip it bare, and get it done within 7 days quite easily. We've just done one this week, actually. It was new record. That was 5 days, and that's everything. New carpets, the lot really. Everything came out. Everything new went in. New furniture built from flat pack as well. When it comes to certain items, I won't pay. So carpets, like the carpets this week, it came in at. I mean, the carpet guy came around. He wanted about 1,200, and I said to him, I wasn't born yesterday. Give me a better deal on this. And I looked at it. We broke it all down. Eventually, we got it for £600. I'd already agreed with the landlord that he would pay £500 toward the carpet. So my contribution's £100 on that. All brand new carpets being fitted into this house, and there is quite a lot of carpet to go in there. So when it's a bigger item like that, then the landlord pays, and he won't mind paying, because if you just say to him, look, your carpets are old and they're smelly and they're horrible, let's just put some new carpets in, it's not going to cost much, and it's going to increase the value of your house anyway. It's going to make it look a lot nicer, a lot fresher. Why would you not do it? That's the way I'd put it to him. And other things as well, such as boilers. I know we haven't touched on boilers and electrics and things like that. That, again, that's nothing to do with you or I. That's the landlord who needs to take care of that. But I'll hand it back over to you, Arsh.
Yeah, okay. A few more questions keep coming in. One person said that the properties that we've seen don't tally up to £5,500. We've only given you a sample of some of the properties that Neil's got. Neil's got a hell of a lot more properties, but yet he assures us all that he's generating £5,500 per month cash flow from these properties. We could be here all night if we started to talk about each property individually. So some of the people started asking, do you do room inventories? What the tenants? Do you leave the furniture in? Do you turn many properties away? If so, and why? Do you buy and use your own furniture for the properties, or do you use the existing furniture that's already there?
Right, there's loads of questions there, but yeah, if the furniture's in a good condition that's already in there, I'll reuse that and then I'll match it to something else. What I've started doing recently is there's a lot of good forums, and there's probably one in your area, where people will go on there and they'll say, "Hi, I've got this bed. Someone, please just come and take it. It's brand. I got one the other day. Hi, I've got a brand new wooden oak bed, £50 with brand new memory foam mattress. I need it gone today." So straight away I was on the phone. Right, Peter, go and grab that bed, 50 quid. And he was around there and grabbed it. So there's things like that we do as well, which keep because a lot of people say, "How do you do it so cheap, Neil?" It's things like that as well, keeping the costs down, and sourcing things quite cheaply. What was the other question? There was loads in there, Ash. What was another one?
There were quite a few. I'm just Neil. Do you mind if I just go off on a bit of a tangent here? Okay.
Yeah, go on.
People saying that. Okay, Neil's doing great. What do you do, Arsh? Okay, I'm going to give you, and I'm going to completely take this off sidetrack now because what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you an example, and it's all about when you're in property. It's all about improvisation. So let's just give you an bar beacon. Right. And this was never intended to be shown onto this webinar, but some people have asked me, well, what am I doing? So let's just quickly, people say, well, how many rent-to-rents have I got? I can start talking to you about some of these, but I'm going to give you some meaty stuff. Now, as with Neil's giving you examples how you can take small properties, 2-story, and you can make cash flow out of them. Now, let's look at this scenario here. And I'm just going to answer some of the critics that have been biting throughout the webinar. Now, if you really got the ambition and you want to go out and grow this in a big way, I took this property on the 8th of September this year. And I've been watching this property for about 3 months. I've got my own strategy where I look at landlords, and sometimes a landlord might turn you away for whatever reason. They may want to run it themselves. And this property came to me. Unfortunately, I haven't got the best picture there. It is a brand new 10-bed HMO. Yes, that's right, 10 bedrooms over 3 floors. Landlord came to me and said he wanted £3,000 a month, and I said he was having a laugh. So we eventually negotiated. It took about 2 weeks to and fro-in, but we got down to £1,500 a month. Paying a utility cost on it on £600 a month, but actually I'm generating £4,000 a month, which is giving me net profit cash flow of £1,900 a month. It's cost me nothing to acquire this property. Now, that was good, but I can do better. I had to still, unfortunately, I had to steal this picture, admittedly, off Google Maps yesterday for a presentation. Now, if you really want to do really well from it, I'm going to give you an example as to how one rent-to-rent property over 7 years will generate me £500,000. Yes, I'm not exaggerating there, and here's how it's going to work. It's a 19-bed former care home. I love care homes, and anyone that knows me, or anyone that's read any of my articles in YPN, I will always say that if you want to create a good and a monster HMO, look for care homes. This care home's been shut 4 years, but inside is absolutely brand new. I agreed a 6-month rent-free period with the landlord. I had to do a bit of work on it. I'm paying the landlord £1,500 a month. I'm paying utility costs on this property at £1,000 a month because of the sheer size of it. But now I'm renting it out room by room, 19 rooms, but we're going to be increasing the scope of this to 25 rooms. And we're generating, as 19 rooms, 6,586, which has given me a net profit of just over £4,000. Now that's good. Unfortunately, I haven't got but I've done an agreement in here. On this care home, it sits on quite a large plot of land, and I've done an agreement with the landlord, and all legally binding because it all went through solicitors. Whereas anywhere within the 7 years, I will go off and get planning on this plot of land, potentially for 12 detached properties. And on the basis of that, the landlord wants a net sale contribution of £300,000. Anything in excess of £300,000 we achieve, half of it is mine. Now, I've done my calculations that this piece of land will be worth anywhere between £500,000 and £600,000 with the benefit of planning permission. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to spend the best part of £10,000 of legals on it and planning fees, which I'm happy to speculate after the 7 years. And we're all in agreement with this. Now, £4,000 cash flow over a year is just short of £50,000. Times that by 7 years is £350,000. Now, let's just say that we sell this piece of land for £600,000. Got to give the landlord 300. Now we've got 300 profit. I split that in half, and the other £150,000 is mine for helping them get the planning permission and selling the land. Now, one property, you're going to be generating £500,000, £500,000 for a property that you don't own, you've never owned, and you've benefited from the sale of capital growth and cash flow all the way through. Sounds good. Sounds a bit too good to be true, but I've got all the documents and all the legal documents to show you how you can do it too. So why are we telling you all this? And just so that I know, here we go. Just making sure I've still got you all with me. Neil, are you still with me?
Yep. Just had you on mute there, but I've got you.
Okay, brilliant. And everyone, right, sorry. Just going through some of the questions, right. Sorry, what's the position within, how many rent-to-rent properties do you have, Arsh? Hopefully I've answered that one. What is the size of Neil's rent-to-rent properties that generating the cash flow? Neil, do you just want to give us a quick rundown of that?
Can you go again with your question?
What is the size of Neil's rent-to-rent properties that is generating this cash flow?
Oh, okay. Well, all the ones I'm doing now, and just before we went on this webinar, actually, me and Arsh were chatting, and I was telling him about today. I just sourced 3 more deals today in the space of about 10 minutes, and that was actually quite easy. I had a tenant come to me, desperate. He just moved down from I don't know, somewhere up north. He didn't check a room, looked at photos, got there, and the photos were 5 years old. The room was absolutely stinking. And he said to me, I've heard you got this room just down the road. So this is one of the guys I mentioned today, block viewing, took it straight away. And he said, I'm in a house just up the road, and it's horrible and all this. The woman that owns it, she's in London. She doesn't know what, she's panicking. She doesn't want me to leave and all this other stuff. I said, give me your phone number. Called her up, and I had a chat with her for about 5 minutes. Asked her what's going on, what are the problems. She told me, I've got all these houses. I don't live in Coventry anymore. My work moved, so I went to London, and I have to keep coming up and down all the time. I don't want to work with an agent and all this. And I said, what would you take for them, each property? And she said, I wouldn't do less than $850 for each one. And I said, right, let's meet up and have a chat. And she said, okay, great. And I said, look, I'm not going to offer you $850. It'll be lower than that, but if I'm not too far off, have we got a deal? And she said, yep, definitely. So it was as easy as that, acquiring three more deals today. So I just wanted to throw that in there because we said at the beginning I'd mention that. Okay. But the houses I go for now, they're all 3 beds. They're 3 beds, 2 reception, and they're the ones. I don't go for the big. I know that's your strategy, but our strategies are completely different. And this is the key thing. There's so many different strategies in rent to rent, and no strategy is right or wrong.
I completely agree with that.
It's what fits the person, isn't it, Arsh?
Exactly. I like to. My personal opinion is that if I'm going to do something, I'd rather cram them all into one property, and I only have to manage one property. I don't want to keep going from house to house to house to house. Whereas I completely appreciate completely understand what you're doing as well. And, you know,
Hmm.
I've got full respect for that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's funny because I wouldn't want to be going to a house and so there's 19 rooms there. For me, it would, I wouldn't want to do it. I'd feel a bit overwhelmed. But each house, 4 people, I mix and match them, so they're all fairly good fit, same age group. They become friends, and that's what I like. For me, it's about I'm a relationship kind of person, so I like to create relationships for people, and I like to see them happy, and I like them to say, "Thanks, Neil, you're the best landlord I've ever had. Thank you so much for sorting that thing out in 2 hours or something, and can I change my payment date? Yeah, of course, let's do it right now. Oh well, my last landlord wouldn't let me. I like all that. I like that's just the way I do it. I like doing the smaller houses now. Whereas, like I said at the beginning, I did a couple of licensed properties at the beginning, and it didn't really. They cash flowed a lot. They were about 920 each, but they just didn't work for me. I was just having hassles and people moaning. Someone drank my milk. Someone ate my banana. That was the one that I put on Facebook about. I know it got a lot of interest. Someone ate his banana, caused World War III. Another guy got drunk, got naked, fell asleep on the floor. All sorts of stuff like this with the big ones I've had. But with these smaller ones, I've not had any issues whatsoever. So it's less cash flow. I'm not getting 900. I'm getting about 600 on each, but I just prefer it like that. It's just my strategy, and they're a lot easier to source. I'm sourcing these every day of the week. And the other way I'm making money as well is I'm actually, we were talking about I'm sourcing some of them on as well, like those licensed ones. I didn't want anything to do with those, sourcing them on. So
Okay.
I think that answers
Sorry,
that.
Neil. I've just got a few people saying that we need to wrap this up because they need to move on. Okay, I'm going to give everyone on this webinar an opportunity to work with me. Now, if you like what you've heard today and you want to create a HMO in your area, I'd like to work with you. You've got 2 options. We can either try and help you set up the rent-to-rent strategy in your location where you are, or I can also help you set up HMOs in your location where you actually go down the traditional method and purchase the property and set them up in a way so that you become a HMO landlord in essence. So what we're offering is almost like a franchise opportunity. You are going to require some capital to get you going if you want to purchase the properties in a traditional method. On the rent-to-rent strategy, you still are going to require some capital, not as much, but in order to do so for obviously the refurbs. If that's of interest, please email me. I appreciate we are running quite late. So yeah, my email address is arsh.ilahi at rent-me-now.co.uk. Finally, I appreciate that also. I've spent the last 20 years creating quite a successful group of companies, and I deal with quite a caliber of different tenants, and I've put 20 years worth of work into the form of a USB, which I call the key to success. If you are going to deal with tenants, you are going to need a number of documents to make sure that you become a hassle-free landlord, but more importantly, a law-abiding landlord. So on the USB, I've put watertight and legally binding tenancy agreement, gas safety docs, guarantor docs, housing benefit accountability spreadsheets if you are dealing with LHA tenants. Remember, I've got a 100% rent collection record, and I'm offering you the tools that I use for my systems on this USB. Normally on my website it's $197, but you can buy it today for £98.50, and I'll tell you what, I will give you a copy of my rent-to-rent agreement on the USB too, and today you can have it for $98.50 by using the promo code RMNUSB, and you can find that on my website, which is arshilahi.com/shop. If you like what you've heard today and you want to know more about rent-to-rent, I'm going to be doing a combined course with Neil in Wolverhampton. Wolverhampton's a great place because we're in the middle of the country and you can easily get access to it. We're just off the M6 and we've got a great train station which near enough brings you in. The next day is on Saturday, the 11th of October 2014. We'll also be running a course in November, a date yet to be confirmed, But the cost for the day is £395, and on that day we'll be going through near enough everything that we've gone through today, but in a hell of a lot more detail, especially the mind maps. So figuring out how you pitch to the landlords, what is the marketing, how you get them on board. As you can appreciate, we've only got an hour this evening, so we haven't been able to take you through the whole process. But when you've got a whole day with 2 rent-to-rent specialists, we can give you an exact, almost a mind map as to what to do, how to do it, and once you've got the property, what you do, how you dress it, how you market it, how you find the tenants, and how you let it out, and almost how you create cash flow from it. Again, the date on that is Saturday the 11th of October. And more importantly, if you decide to book on for the course, I'll give you the USB, which is on my website for $197 for absolutely free. So you're getting a £200 gift just from me for free. To book on, simply visit arshilahi.com/events/R2R, which will take you to the page with Neil's biography on, which you can have a good read of. But more importantly, the website's got lots of reading material for you. You've got lots of all my YPN articles. Some people are asking what the code for the USB was. It was RMN USB. People are asking, how do we get a copy of Neil's rent-to-rent contract? Unfortunately, that is only available for those that attend the course. I'm offering you my rent-to-rent contract, which is on the USB. Admittedly, Neil's is in a lot more detail, and Neil's has had his checked out, or I've had mine checked out by solicitors. Neil has had his run through a lot more legal, of a more rigorous process. But that's the only way that you're going to be able to get hold of Neil's contract. And finally, on that note, I'm happy to take questions after, but on that note, that kind of concludes us for this tonight's webinar. You've got my personal mobile number there. You can also find myself on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And Neil, do you mind if we spend the next, I'd say 5 minutes, just quickly going through a few questions?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Sure. I don't want to drag it out too long. Right, okay, so let's have a quick look. A few people have said, well, are my rent-to-rent also let out to benefit tenants? Yes, because I understand that market. I don't mind taking LHA tenants. A lot of the people doing rent-to-rent strategies will only concentrate on professional lets, but it's whatever works for you. If you understand the market, I don't see why personally, I don't understand the student market, so I don't take students. I understand professionals, but I don't like the risk associated with them. Whereas Neil, on the other side, doesn't take LHA tenants, but loves professional tenants. So you can have completely different sides of the spectrum. And you remember, you're going to be the guys that are going to be managing the properties. So you've got to choose a strategy which suits your skill set. People are asking, what happens at the end of the 3-year lease if the landlord wants the property back and you have ASTs that go past the 3-year period?
The landlord has to give 6 months' notice.
Okay. So landlord's got to give you 6 months' notice.
Uh-huh.
And then on that basis, within that period, I'm assuming you then give your tenants notice to vacate as well.
Yeah, what I've basically said, what I've come up with is that if any landlords at some point they will say, you know, I want the property back. My plan is actually to buy that property anyway. That's my long-term plan. That's what I'm doing this for. I'm building up a pot of money. I want to buy those properties from the landlord. But failing that, all I would do is I've got so many properties now that if he said, right, I want this property back, I'd speak to the tenants and say, hi guys, look, this property is now going back to the landlord, but I've got this new property, really nice, beautiful, it's better than this one. Do you want to move into this one? And that's what I'd do. I'd just move the tenants across. If I had a difficult tenant, because I'm sure someone's thinking this now listening, what if someone doesn't want to move? Well, it would be at the end of the contract anyway, and I'd offer a financial incentive. But the fact is, all my tenants, are really, really nice people. I don't take in awkward, hassle people. I'm very, very rigorous on the people I select and put in the houses. So I've got a really good relationship with all of them. I've just never had an issue, never had anyone not pay. It's, I think I won't go into it too much, but that should answer most of that.
Okay, a couple of people are just asking a few questions on the course. What support
Yeah.
is there after the course? Well, you'll have direct access to both me and Neil, but not only that, we also have an online community, which is specifically for people who have attended the course, which will be added into. But the beauty of it is that you'll have direct access to both me and Neil.
Yeah,
One
definitely.
person's asked, can I bring a partner for free? Are you feeling generous, Neil?
Well, maybe not that generous.
Well, if they book on tonight, do you want to let them bring their partner, providing it's a business partner or marital partner, for free?
Yeah, as long as someone's not sort of getting someone else together,
So,
they don't even
okay,
know.
fair enough. There you have it, ladies and gents. That's completely off the cuff. If you want to book on tonight, and you have to be able to attend the course on the 11th of October, you can bring your partner, providing that your business or marital partner with you for free. Let's just have a quick look at some of the other questions. Does Neil keep the furniture in there for his tenants, buying a new set per house, or does he move it from house to house and let the tenants move their own furniture in?
Say that again, Ash. I didn't quite
Sorry,
follow that.
someone's saying that. Do you keep that furniture that you put in the property? Do you leave it there, or
Yeah.
do you move it to another property, or is it just staging furniture?
The furniture all stays there. The soft. So we've got two types of furniture. We've got your hard furniture, which is your wardrobe, chest of drawers, bed, mattress, and then you've got your soft furniture, which is things like a duvet, pillows, a plant, a lamp, things like that. They're your soft stuff. All the soft stuff comes out. All the hard stuff stays in, and that stays there for good, really.
Okay, brilliant. People asking, do any of the properties you rent have mortgages? Are the mortgage companies okay with this? We covered that earlier on. And the one thing that I will be doing is I'll be sending
Yeah, we covered that.
webinar link and recording back to everyone that registered on the webinar. We also talked about how you can get hold of the name and address of the landlord via land registry. I'm just going through some of the questions. A few people just want to see some of the other slides again.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. Do you acquire any of the properties on purchase options?
I actually don't do any purchase lease options, no. Purely because it's just, I looked into it, it's not, I've always found in business, once I start to broaden my horizons too much, I lose focus. I just think of it like a magnifying glass. I like to focus in, laser focus on one strategy, and that's that. I just want to be an expert at what I do. I want to be the best at what I do. So I don't get involved with lease options and things like that, purely because I know the basics of them, but I also know of friends of mine who tell me all the time that they've had an issue or they wanted to purchase and they had an issue. I know it doesn't happen very often. The same could be said with other strategies, but it's just not something I've got any interest in doing.
Okay, brilliant. And then finally, it's just a few people have asked again just for the link, how to book onto the course. Again, go onto my website, which is arshilahi.com/events. You can see the event for the 11th of October. And again, we're offering it out specifically. If you're on this webinar tonight, you can bring your partner for free, which I've never done before, but someone asked the question. So why not?
Yeah, why not?
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm absolutely mind shattered. I'd like to thank Neil very much for his time this evening. We've been on the webinar near enough 90 minutes. I'd like to thank you all who have attended and who have stayed on the webinar right till the end. Please feel free to get in contact with us. If there's anything else that you'd like to know, please get in contact with us. Again, you can come directly through to me, either on my mobile or through my website, and I'm more than happy to have a chat with you guys. On that note, I'd like to wish you all a lovely evening. Enjoy the rest of it. Neil, thank you very much for your time. If you'd like to say goodnight to your listeners.
Yeah, cheers, Ash. Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate you logging in on a Wednesday, quite late at night. Hopefully I delivered some value. That was my goal for tonight, to make sure you at least got a lot of the basics down, and gave you some ideas and tips as well. So I hope I fulfilled that mission. All right, thanks guys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Neil, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Cheers. Bye now.
Have a good evening. Take care. Bye.